Signing of enrolled acts. Whoa. Man, oh man. We are moving right along. We're at that order of business, signing enrolled acts. Senate Enrolled Act number 1.
Senate Enrolled Act number 1, being original House file, Senate file number 15, Oil and Gas Conservation Commission, regulation of pits.
Okay. I'm about to sign Senate Enrolled Act number 1. Same being original Senate file 15. Signed. Is that it? Hit the gavel? All right, so signed. Oh, this is going to take some time here. Thank you. Senate Enrolled Act number 2.
Senate Enrolled Act number 2, being original Senate File 16, Industrial Siting Tribal Notification.
Sorry, I was distracted by a pelt in the back row there. Let's see, I'm about to sign Senate Enrolled Act number 2, same being original Senate File 16. I have so signed. Senate Enrolled Act number 3.
Senate Enrolled Act number 3, being original Senate File 20, an act relating to oil and gas bonding options and bonding pools.
Thank you. I'm about to sign Senate Enrolled Act number 3, same being original Senate File 20. I have so signed. Senate Enrolled Act number 4.
Senate Enrolled Act number 4, being original Senate File 23, Handicapped Placards, Healthcare Providers Approval.
I'm about to sign Senate Enrolled Act number 4, being original Senate File 23. I have so signed. Senate Enrolled Act number 5.
Senate Enrolled Act number 5, being original Senate File 25, Electronic Lien and Title System.
I am about to sign Senate Enrolled Act number 5, being Senate File 25. I have so signed. Senate Enrolled Act number 6.
Senate Enrolled Act number 6, being original Senate File 149, an act relating to wildlife conservation license plates amendments.
I'm about to sign Senate Enrolled Act number 6, being original Senate File 149. I have so signed. All right. Messages from the House.
From the House of Representatives, Mr. President, the following messages are dated February 18, 2025. And the following messages, these Senate files have passed the House on third reading. Message number 293, Senate File number 15, Oil and Gas Conservation Commission, Regulation of Pits, ayes 60, noes 1, excused 1. Message number 294, Senate File 16, Industrial Siting Tribal Notification, ayes 61, excused 1. Message number 295, Senate File number 20, Oil and Gas Bonding Options and Bonding Pools, ayes 61, excused 1. Message number 296, Senate File 23, Handicap Placards Healthcare Providers Approval, ayes 61, excused 1. Message number 297, Senate File number 25, Electronic Lien and Title System, ayes 60, noes 1, excused 1. Message number 301, Senate File 149, Wildlife Conservation License Plates Amendments, ayes 53, noes 3, excused 1. Mr. President, the following messages request concurrence. Senate File 13, Reading Assessment and Intervention Amendments, passed the House on third reading in an amended form. Ayes 61, excused 1. The House respectfully asks Senate to concur by adopting amendments. Message number 303, Senate File number 40, Zoning Protest Petition Amendments, passed the House on third reading in an amended form. Ayes 52, noes 9, excused 1. House respectfully asks the Senate to concur by adopting amendments. Message number 298, Senate File 42, Resort Hotel Liquor Licenses, passed the House on third reading in an amended form. Ayes 43, noes 18, excused 1. The House respectfully asks the Senate to concur by adopting amendments. Message number 299, Senate File 49, Tangible Personal Property Index and Depreciation, passed the House in an amended form. Ayes 57, noes 4, excused 1. House respectfully asks the Senate to concur by adopting amendments. Message number 300, Senate File 81, Tax Exemption Property Owned by the State, passed the House in amended form. Ayes 57, noes 4, excused 1. House respectfully asks the Senate to concur by adopting amendments. Message number 302, Senate Joint Resolution number 3, commemorating Nellie Taylor Ross, passed the House on third reading in an amended form. Ayes 50, noes 11, excused 1. The House respectfully asks the Senate to concur by adopting amendments. Sincerely, Katie Talbot, House Chief Clerk.
Thank you, Randy. House bills on first reading. House Bill 147, first reading of the bill.
House Bill 147 engrossed, Prohibition of Institutional Discrimination, sponsored by Representative Rodriguez-Williams, passed the House. Ayes 51, noes 8, excused 3.
House Bill 147 is assigned to Committee Number 1, Judiciary. House Bill 177, first reading of the bill.
House Bill 177, Statutory Standing Committee Federal Review, sponsored by Representative Worf, passed the House. Ayes 32, noes 25, excused 5.
House Bill 177 is assigned to Committee Number 1, Judiciary. House Bill 223, first reading of the House bill.
House Bill 223 engrossed, Preventing Strategic Lawsuits Against Public Participation, sponsored by Representative Ottman, passed the House. Ayes 49, noes 9, excused 2, conflict 2.
House Bill 223 is assigned to Committee Number 1, Judiciary. House Bill 324, first reading of the bill.
House Bill 324 engrossed, State Elected Officials, Employees at Will and Regulations, sponsored by Representative Andrew, passed the House. Ayes 41, noes 19, excused 2.
House Bill 324 is assigned to Committee Number 1, Judiciary. House Bill 270, first reading of the bill.
House Bill 270, Permanent Mineral Trust Fund Spending Policy, sponsored by Representative Baer, passed the House. Ayes 33, noes 26, excused 3.
House Bill 270 is assigned to Committee Number 2, Appropriations. House Bill 271, first reading of the bill.
House Bill 271 engrossed, Common School Account Spending Policy Amount, sponsored by Representative Baer, passed the House. Ayes 32, noes 27, excused 3.
House Bill 271 is assigned to Committee Number 2, Appropriations. House Bill 293, first reading of the bill.
House Bill 293, Repealing the School Foundation Program Reserve Account, sponsored by Representative Baer, passed the House. Ayes 53, noes 7, excused 2.
House Bill 293 is assigned to Committee Number 2, Appropriations. House Bill 294, first reading of the House bill.
House Bill 294, Federal Mineral Royalties Distribution Amendment, sponsored by Representative Baer, passed the House. Ayes 56, noes 5, excused 1.
House Bill 294 is assigned to Committee Number 2, Appropriations. House Bill 134, first reading of the House Bill.
House Bill 134, engrossed. Taxpayer funds, sexually explicit events prohibited 2, sponsored by Representative Gugamos. Passed the House, ayes 53, noes 7, excused 2.
House Bill 134 is assigned to Committee Number 3, Revenue. House Bill 165, first reading of the bill.
House Bill 165, ranked choice voting prohibition, sponsored by Representative Webb. Passed the House, ayes 43, noes 13, excused 2.
House Bill 165 is assigned to Committee Number 3, Revenue. House Bill 279.
House Bill 279, property tax exemptions, order of application, sponsored by Representative Nicholas. Ayes 60, excused 2.
House Bill 279 is assigned to Committee Number 3, Revenue. House Bill 148, first reading of the House Bill.
House Bill 148, University of Wyoming Governance, elected trustees, sponsored by Representative Rodriguez-Williams. Passed the House, ayes 34, noes 17, excused 11.
House Bill 148 is assigned to Committee Number 4, Education. House Bill 32, first reading of the House Bill.
House Bill 32, engrossed. What is a Woman Act, sponsored by Representative Lean. Passed the House, ayes 50, noes 9, excused 3.
House Bill 32 is assigned to Committee Number 5, Agriculture. House Bill 63, first reading of the bill.
House Bill 63, engrossed. Working Animal Protection Act, sponsored by Representative Rodriguez-Williams. Passed the House, ayes 53, noes 8, excused 1.
House Bill 63 is assigned to Committee Number 5, Agriculture. House Bill 299, first reading of the House Bill.
House Bill 299, engrossed. Online sports wagering amendments, sponsored by Representative Posey. Passed the House, ayes 45, noes 14, excused 3.
House Bill 299 is assigned to Committee Number 6, Travel. House Bill 122, first reading of the House Bill.
House Bill 122, engrossed. Senior Citizen Service Districts Authorization and Renewal, sponsored by Representative Connolly. Passed the House, ayes 44, noes 17, excused 1.
House Bill 122 is assigned to Committee Number 7, Corporations. House Bill 206, first reading of the House Bill.
House Bill 206, Elections Acceptable Identification Revisions 2, sponsored by Representative Weber. Passed the House, ayes 49, noes 8, excused 5.
House Bill 206 is assigned to Committee Number 7, Corporations. House Bill 228, first reading of the bill.
House Bill 228, Prohibition on Private Funds for Conducting Elections, sponsored by Representative Knapp. Passed the House, ayes 57, noes 4, excused 1.
House Bill 228 is assigned to Committee Number 7, Corporations. House Bill 209, first reading of the House Bill.
House Bill 209, engrossed. Carbon Capture Mandate Repeal, sponsored by Representative Knapp. Passed the House, ayes 60, noes 1, excused 1.
House Bill 209 is assigned to Committee Number 9, Minerals. House Bill 103, first reading of the House Bill.
House Bill 103, Columbarium Regulation, sponsored by Representative Sherwood. Passed the House, ayes 60, excused 2.
House Bill 103 is assigned to Committee Number 10, Labor. House Bill 188, first reading of the House Bill.
House Bill 188, Two Families, One Nanny, sponsored by Representative Yen. Passed the House, ayes 60, excused 2.
House Bill 188 is assigned to Committee Number 10, Labor. House Bill 222, first reading of the House Bill.
House Bill 222, Medical Ethics Defense Act 2, sponsored by Representative Ottman. Passed the House, ayes 51, noes 9, excused 2.
House Bill 222 is assigned to Committee Number 10, Labor. Reports from standing committees.
Mr. President, the following reports are dated February 18, 2025. Committee Number 5, Agriculture, State and Public Lands and Water Resources, to whom is referred House Bill 234, Second Amendment Financial Privacy Act Amendments, respectfully reports same back to the Senate with the recommendation that it do pass. Ayes Senators Craigo, French, Ide, McEwen, and Pearson. Senator French, Chairman. Committee number 6, Travel, Recreation, Wildlife, and Cultural Resources, to whom is referred House Bill 5, engrossed, fishing outfitters and guides, registration of fishing boats. Respectfully report same back to the Senate with the recommendation that it do pass amended. Ayes, Senators Boner, Jones, Landon, and Schuler. No, Senator Hicks. Senator Landon, Chairman. Committee number 5, Agriculture, State and Public Lands and Water Resources, to whom is referred House Bill 117, engrossed, Omnibus Water Bill Construction. Respectfully report same back to the Senate with a recommendation that it do pass amended. Ayes, Senators Crago, French, Ide, McEwen, and Pearson. Senator French, Chairman. Committee number 2, Appropriations, to whom is referred House Bill 316, engrossed, School Finance Model Recalibration 2. Respectfully report same back to the Senate with a recommendation that it do pass. Ayes, Senators Driscoll, Garou, Larson, and Salazar. No, Senator Smith. Senator Salazar, Chairman. Committee number 2, Appropriations, to whom is referred House Bill 33, Vehicle Sales and Use Tax Distribution Highway Fund. Respectfully report same back to the Senate with a recommendation that it do pass. Ayes, Senators Driscoll, Garou, and Salazar. No, Senators Larson and Smith. Senator Salazar, Chairman.
Thank you, Randy. Chairman French, do you have a re-referral for me?
Yes, Mr. President, the water bill, the omnibus water bill.
House Bill 117 by chance?
Yes.
Would you ask it to be re-referred to Committee number 2, Appropriations?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Absent objection, House Bill 117 is re-referred to Committee number 2, Appropriations. All right. Senator Barlow.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request that House Bill 289, Certificate of Need of Repeal 3, be referred from Committee number 10 to Committee number 1. Thank you.
It hasn't been read in yet? We'll have to wait on that.
Okay.
It's okay? Can you restate the motion or the request? I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request that House Bill 289, Certificate of Need Repeal 3, be referred from Committee number 10 to Committee number 1.
Okay. Absent objection by anybody other than the chairman, House Bill 289 has been re-referred from Committee number 10 to Committee number 1, Judiciary. All right, now. Madam Floor Leader, I can't see you back there behind all the fur and the flowers.
It's an interesting life I live back in the corner,
Yes, it
Mr.
is.
President. Mr. President, I move that the Senate resolve itself into Committee of the Whole.
All right, you've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. Motion's adopted. Senator Landon, come on down. Wild Bill. All right, she's all yours. Sir, let's go. Good afternoon down there, will you?
Committee of the Whole will please come to order. As the late, great senator from Park County used to say, these are House bills, I'll throw them up and you shoot them down. First bill for our consideration committee is House Joint Resolution 1. If the reading clerk would please read the resolution.
House Joint Resolution 1, amending Wyoming's Act of Admission for Earnings, sponsored by the Capital Finance Committee. A joint resolution requesting Congress to introduce a bill and enact law to amend Wyoming's Act of Admission to authorize the expenditure of earnings for the support of the common schools in Wyoming. Was referred to Committee number 2, which returned to committee recommendation that it do pass. Ayes, Senators Driscoll, Garou, Larson, Salazar, and Smith. Senator Salazar, Chairman.
You've heard the reading of the resolution. What is your favor, Senator Driscoll?
Mr. Chairman, I move that the Senate rise reported do so with a favorable recommendation on House Journal 1. And for further explanation, I call on the good senator from Bags.
Well, Senator Hicks,
Mr. Chairman, there is a committee of the whole amendment. I would ask that be read in.
HA 1, Committee of the Whole Amendment Number 1, page 2, line 22, delete.
Mr. Chairman, I move Committee of the Whole Amendment Number 1 to House Joint Resolution Number 1 because it's much more, it's an update. And so I'm going to do the Standing Committee Amendment, or the Committee of the Whole Amendment. It just goes in and updates the actual status. I'll talk a little bit about this. This bill has been in some form for over 3 years now in the legislature. So it goes into page 2 on line 23. When this was initially drafted, we had a little over $4 billion in the Common School Permanent Land Fund. We now have a market value of $5.6 million in that account. The amendment just updates it to the current balance, the market value. I'd ask for your favorable consideration.
all those in favor of Senator Hicks's motion on Committee of the Whole Amendment Number 1 to House Joint Resolution 1, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, no. Back to you, Senator Hicks.
Mr. Chairman, back on the bill. So members of the body, this is probably one of the most substantive pieces of legislation that if we can get passed and get incorporated. And so in the Act of Admissions in 1890, the federal government conveyed to the states 16 and 36, 2 sections. In the Act of Admission, it says any revenues derived or the sale of those lands becomes a permanent fund, and it talks about interest and earnings off of those accounts. Today, that's archaic language and a reference of investing and financial terminology. We have other things like capital gains and dividends that are also included, but the way that the language in that Act of Admissions is structured, it says we can only do interest and income off of that account. So what this does is sends a joint resolution to our delegation to Congress to change our active admissions. It does one thing, it changes, if you go back to the back page, we're just changing a couple of words, and I'll explain why. So if you go to page 4 and section 5, we're changing interest to earnings. Page 5, interest to earnings, and you get over to page 6, interest to earnings. The reason that we're doing this, and a couple other states have done this in the last decade, and I'll give you an example. We looked at Utah has done this, New Mexico has done this. Because of an interpretation in the Constitution and the Act of Admissions, it limits our investment staff to pursuing investment instruments that provide interest. So think fixed income, US government securities, those type of things. Well, in modern days, those are low return investments. I'll give you an example. I talked to our CIO last Friday on this particular thing, and he said last year, New Mexico did this 10 years ago. So New Mexico has the exact same kind of account. They derived 9% return on that Common School Permanent Trust Fund that New Mexico manages. Wyoming did 6%. So take the differential as 3%. So the differential on $5.6 billion is $171 million in interest income that New Mexico derived off of their account by just changing the words from interest to earnings. $171 million in 1 year. And that's why we're doing this. It's very important. We've had a lot of discussions here in the last couple of weeks about the importance of how much that funds out of our permanent fund. This goes to the school funds, which funds about 20% of all of our school funding comes from investment earnings. And so we need to get this passed. There's a couple of ways that you can do this. This is one path. So Utah and New Mexico have done this. This is one path. We do a resolution, take it to our delegation, they incorporate it. It's been non-controversial when it's passed, regardless of which administrations. It's for the school system. And so we need to get this passed out of here. We need to get it to our delegation and start working with them to get this active admission changed for that very purpose, to allow our investment staff to start to get a higher rate of return to chase things like dividends and capital gains with our investment. So with that, Mr. Chairman, that's an explanation of the bill. I'd stand for any questions.
Discussion on House Joint Resolution 1. Any discussion? All those in favor of Senator Driscoll's motion that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report, do so with a due pass recommendation on House Joint Resolution 1, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, no. House Joint Resolution 1 has passed Committee of the Whole. Senator Craigo.
Mr. Chairman, privilege of the floor.
You may have it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So up above us here, senators, please help me welcome the 2024 Wyoming WWAMI Medical School class. These 20 individuals represent the newest cohort of medical students who will study in Laramie for 18 months before beginning the clerkship phase of their training around the WWAMI region. The students above us in the gallery represent every corner of Wyoming and are shining examples of Wyoming's finest. WWAMI is one of our most competitive education programs. It's my pleasure to now recognize this year's WWAMI class. Students, as I read your name and city, please stand so we can thank you for your dedication to Wyoming and your commitment to return to Wyoming and practice medicine. Senators, please hold your applause until I've announced all of our future doctors, because there's a handful of them. Kyler Areola, Jackson. Carson Asher, Powell. Caden Crooks, Cody. Cassidy Delos, Cheyenne. McKenna Angliker from Douglas. Noah Gustafson from Banner. Celeste Keelan from Rock Springs. Jill Mayer from Bighorn. Shay Nelson, Afton. Adakin O'Connor from Laramie. Audrey Peasley from Douglas. Avery Potter, Casper. Ben Radosevich, also from Casper. Timothy Radosevich, Green River. Sarah Rutherford, Casper. Lulu Rochelle, Casper. Cassidy Sebastian, Jackson. Jack Searing, Sheridan. Annika Seavrud, Rock Springs. And Hannah Thomas from Green River. Senators, let's welcome these students to the Senate and let them know how much we need them. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and students, hurry up and get back to Wyoming. We need you all.
Thank you, Senator Craigo. And, ironically, they represent every one of my favorite towns in Wyoming. Senator French.
If I may have privilege of the floor.
You may have it.
Up there is my niece, April.
Well, how about
Give her a big hand.
All righty, back to work. Senators, the next bill for our consideration is House Bill 17. If the reading clerk, please read the House bill.
House Bill 17, Career Technical Education Equipment Grants Amendment, sponsored by the Education Committee. An act relating to career technical education equipment grants for K-12 public school districts. Was referred to Committee Number 4, which returned to committee recommendation that it do pass. Ayes, Senators Brennan, Olson, Rothfuss, Schuler, and Scott. Senator Schuler, Chairman.
You've heard the reading of the bill. What is your pleasure? Senator Schuler.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report it, do so with the recommendation that House Bill 17 do pass. And with that, I would turn the time over to the good senator from Albany County.
Senator Rothfuss.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, House Bill 17 was work of the Joint Education Interim Committee related to our Career Technical Education Equipment Grants Program, and makes a couple of amendments. The program already exists, but this modifies it. You see the first amendment that it makes on the bottom of page 1 onto page 2 is it changes the maximum amount that can be awarded under the equipment grant program from $50,000 to $75,000. We heard pretty extensive testimony that a lot of the equipment is well over $100,000 at this point when we're looking to make purchases. So this is just recognizing the reality of the costs of the equipment that are being looked at. This isn't necessarily going to pay for the entirety of a piece of equipment, but it's going to pay for some portion of it, and hopefully a substantial portion at $75,000. Mr. Chairman, the second change in this legislation gets down on page 2, changing a look-back period where right now in statute, you have to have spent your 29% funding, so your full CTE funding for the past 5 years, or have a plan to spend it as a look-back so that you can be eligible for this grant program. There was a request that that look-back period be limited to 2 years to ensure that schools could come into compliance in a more reasonable fashion and get to be eligible in a more reasonable way. So that request was honored by the Joint Education Committee. It takes the 5-year period down to 2 years for the look-back. It still does require then, though, that that school district be in good standing by utilizing all of their CTE funding that is provided through that 29% funding through the school foundation program model over the past couple of years. It either has a plan to use it for the equipment that is being purchased or has already utilized it all. That's what the bill does. I encourage the body to vote aye.
Okay, thank you, Senator Rothfuss. Discussion on House Bill 17, Career Technical Education Equipment Grants Amendments. Senator Cole.
Mr. Chairman, just a question about what are the natures of the equipment that we're talking about purchasing, just to give a broad scope of what that may be. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, any other questions for the bringer of the bill? Okay, back to you, Senator Rothfuss.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is our broad category covering CTE, career technical education. So we're talking woodworking equipment, lathes, types of equipment that you'd be familiar with for those types of laboratories. It could get into culinary arts as well. You might be buying an entirely new kitchen that is going to be used for cooking. It could be used for automotive. Again, this is equipment oriented. It's not providing for personnel or simple supplies. Actually, I think it is eligible for supplies, although that's not what it's typically used for. Large equipment purchases is what it's been used for in the past. And it's about $500,000 per year, I believe, is what we have available to it through this grant program. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, any further discussion on House Bill 17? Further discussion? Senator Hicks.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I remember this from a couple of years ago when we worked this and come up with this. And one of the reasons we did the 5-year kind of proceeding, there's not a lot of money in this account. And so we wanted to make sure that those schools that had a real commitment to CET were continuing with that commitment. But the question I have is now that we move this back, how many more schools does this broaden this open to, is going to open it up for this funding? And my concern, we've raised them out, we've decreased the eligibility requirements. My concern is we're going to have a run on the money and there's just not going to be enough in the account. But was there any just look at that from the Education Committee to say how many more schools are going to be eligible for these grant funds?
Senator Schuler.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If I recall, and the good senator from Albany County might be able to refresh my memory, but it appeared to me, and I did take good notes on this, but I believe there were 5 schools is all that would be eligible right now.
Okay, any further discussion on House Bill 17, the Career and Technical Education bill? All those in favor of Senator Schuler's motion that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report and do so with a due pass recommendation on House Bill 17, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, no? House Bill 17 has passed Committee of the Whole. The next bill for our consideration is House Bill 168. Would the reading clerk please read that bill?
House Bill 168, engrossed, Cultivated Meat Prohibition, an act relating to public health and safety, sponsored by Representative Eklund. It was referred to Committee Number 5, which returned a committee recommendation that it do pass. Ayes, Senators Crago, French, McEwen, and Pearson. No, Senator Ide. Senator French, Chairman.
You've heard the reading of the bill. What is your pleasure? Senator French.
Yeah, I move that when the committee of the whole rises to report, it do so with the recommendation that Senate File 168 do pass, and for an explanation, call on Senator Driscoll.
Point of order, Senator Hicks.
House Bill 168.
I'm sorry,
Okay, Senator French, you want to try that one more time?
I'll try it again. He is correct. I move that when the committee of the whole rises to report, it do so with the recommendation that House Bill 168 do pass, and for an explanation, I call on Senator Driscoll.
Senator Driscoll?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a good bill either way. There is an amendment. We have it read in, please.
House Bill 168, Committee of the Whole Amendment Number 1 to engrossed copy, page 2, line 3, delete.
I'd move for adoption of the Committee of the Whole Amendment Number 1 to House Bill 168. Ask for your favorable consideration. I'll work through the bill and then we'll work the amendment as we do it. It works in.
Okay, thank you, Senator.
This is really a pretty simple bill, and I'll just flat tell you the intent is Wyoming's a beef state. We all love our beef, we love our pork, and we love our home-raised wholesome foods from home. And this act is a prohibition on cultivated meat that's grown in a lab, makes it illegal to sell it or do it in Wyoming. So when you go to top of page 2, we do a definition, and that's where the amendment comes in. Cultivated meat means meat that is grown, and it used to say entirely in a laboratory. The amendment scratches that. So it will read, cultivated meat means meat that is grown from cultured animal cells rather than harvested from an animal. Pretty simple. It's not the wholesome thing we all know. With that part, I'd ask for a vote on the amendment, because that's all it is. It just strikes out entirely in a laboratory.
We're on the Committee of the Whole Amendment Number 1 to House Bill 168. Is there any discussion? All those in favor of Senator Driscoll's motion to adopt Committee of the Whole Amendment Number 1, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, no? That amendment has passed. Back to you, Senator Driscoll.
Thank you. Now we're on to the middle of page 2, and this does what you can't do. Says no person will manufacture for sell or offer for sale or distribute for sale cultivated meat for human consumption in this state. Doesn't deal into non-human consumption, but it's for human consumption. Bottom of the page talks about what happens. Inserts an establishing and manufacturing for sale, selling or offering for sale, or distributing for sale cultivated meat for human consumption. That's the entire bill. It just says you can't sell cultivated meat in any fashion, form, or otherwise for human consumption in Wyoming. Good bill, supports our homegrown industries. If you want to go eat your cultivated meat, I'd suggest you travel somewhere else after we pass the bill. I'd stand for the question, ask your favorable consideration.
Okay, Senator Driscoll, thank you. We're on House Bill 168. Senator Ide.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was the no vote in committee on this, and I want to explain myself.
You're always brave. Senator. I appreciate that about you.
You know, I'll be the first to, my family, they'll all probably be mad at me, all of them in the cattle industry, but I think, I need to push back here a little bit. I wrote some notes down here. Lab-grown meat is disgusting. It's totally. I mean, the health concerns are valid. I agree with everything about this bill, and the globalists want to replace red meat with lab-grown meat. But with that said, this doesn't justify banning a product outright, even if it's repugnant or unhealthy. I mean, there's a lot of things that are there. I mean, I remember them trying to ban big swigs a long time ago. I guess, I don't know if I can say that, if that's a proper word or not, or, moist snuff. We're going down a slippery slope here. It looks like, we're kind of nanny state in this, trying to control our appetites with legislation, and I think that's a bad path to go down. And I'll finish with one of them. There again, I like to quote one of our early framers, founders, third president, and this is what he had to say about it. If the people let the government decide what foods they eat and the medicines they take, their bodies will soon being as sorry as this state as the souls that live under tyranny. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator, by the way, well stated. I know that you know I was just laughing with you and appreciate it. So, Senator Case.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, this is an act relating to public health and safety. Or is it? Maybe it's an act related to keeping somebody out of any kind of business that we might be in. I don't know. People are saying it's unhealthy. I don't know if it's unhealthy. I've never tried it. I really don't want to try it. But to come in and try to say that we can't sell something in Wyoming is pretty parochial, Mr. Chairman. And if, I think it should probably be labeled for what it is. But to say that we're not going to tolerate it being here, I suspect we're reaching beyond our means here. So if anybody wants to sell a pile of glop, and they identify it as a pile of glop, and it otherwise meets federal inspection or whatever that is, we shouldn't be legislating that. I hope we'll resist this effort. It doesn't speak well of us, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Smith.
Mr. Chairman, I think I need to explain my vote as well. We shouldn't be in the business of picking winners and losers. Of course, we want Wyoming homegrown beef, and this is just lab-grown stuff. It's just, but who are we to say you can't sell it? That's just a step too far. You just can parallel that in a lot of different things, a lot of ways that we've been oppressed and in different ways in your life. This is not, it's just not, it doesn't line up with the Constitution for me, so I'll be opposed to it.
Further discussion on House Bill 168. Let's go to Senator Scott before we go back to the sponsor.
Mr. Chairman, I think there's a factor in here that we aren't recognizing. You grow something in a culture, Mr. Chairman, you are running the risk of a bacterial contamination. And I think it's particularly likely with this kind of product. So I really think this does have a significant health and safety aspect until they've proved they can deal with that kind of problem. And I think that, all joking aside, I think there's a very serious purpose to this particular bill.
Senator Rothfuss.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I have concerns about the bill for the same reasons that some of the colleagues have laid out. This is an anti-freedom bill, and this is an anti-free market bill, very clearly. This is trying to fence out innovation in favor of an existing market in a way that honestly seems entirely antithetical to the Wyoming spirit, in my view. I'm surprised by this legislation, even though we all do love our Wyoming homegrown beef, pork, and other products. The idea that we would go into statute and exclude future products, it makes no sense to me. And from the health and safety standpoint, the idea of a bacterial infection, for example, in the culture is easily detected and remedied. I mean, that is not a problem of any sort whatsoever. Culturing this meat in a synthetic laboratory environment can be as clean or unclean as desired. It's up to the standards and practices that are used. Exactly as in agriculture. You can have high quality and a great deal of confidence in your agricultural products, or you can run a lousy, unclean facility and then you'll end up with bacterial infection. It's just how you go about doing it that is going to matter. I think about the food freedom work that we've done in recent years and how groundbreaking, really, that has been, where we've emphasized the idea that people in Wyoming should be free to consume, purchase whatever products they choose, as long as they're well informed. Right? That's the standard we typically use for the Food Freedom Acts that we've passed. We've passed quite a few of them, proudly, in this legislature. Why would that standard not be appropriate here? It would make perfect sense to have labeling. Labeling makes sense. It's exactly what we do for food freedom. If you're not going to have an inspected product, if you're going to have homegrown, if you're going to have unpasteurized milk, we've managed this in the past. We've simply said, make sure you've got a label on it so that consumers know what's going on. But we went out of our way to ensure that an informed consumer had access for all the right reasons, the reasons of competition, fairness, and freedom. The freedom to access a marketplace as desired. This goes entirely contrary to that food freedom. It is the ultimate fence out, and I think just flies in the face of what we've stood for with regard to fairness in foods in the state of Wyoming.
Further discussion, we're on House Bill 168, cultivated meat prohibition. Senator Pearson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I remember quite a few years back when my dad came with a news article on this lab-grown meat and how this multi-billionaire was doing this. And he said to me, we will be out of the sheep business. Cattle producers will be out of the business. And I thought to myself, the same as a lot of people in here, that people have the freedom to cultivate whatever they want, but now that I know what I know and how world governments have been trying to control the food supply, have been trying to put livestock producers out of business at every turn with different things that they've implemented, I absolutely am for this bill. Because if you look at what they were intending, to control our food supply, to grow this meat, to get rid of ag, I think we have to think about those things that were coming for us. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Kolb.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to make it real clear, on and against synthetic meat. However, on and for this thought that restricting businesses and what they do is a bad precedent to set. I don't know where we're picking winners and losers from. I would never consume such a product, but restricting others from making a product, frankly, it seems kind of un-American, not pro-business, not pro-choice, not for all the things I stand for, even though I'm adamantly against anything synthetic being grown in this manner. But that's my choice. And as long as the packaging is such, I'm good with people doing what they do in a free market. So on and against the bill. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, let's go to Senator Driscoll and then to Senator Dockstader.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Love the pitch you just gave me from Bitter Creek, Senator. I appreciate it very much. I encourage you all to read the bill. Doesn't say you can't sell it. I'm looking over at my gold friend from Casper. Doesn't say you can't sell this product. What it says, you can't do meat, guys. You can still sell cultivated things. You can't call it meat. You can't call it meat. Do you see anywhere in the bill? Read the bill. Does it say you can't sell a glob of cells that you call whatever product you like to call it? You can do that. This bill does not say you can't do it. What it says, cultivated meat means meat that is grown from cultured animal cells rather than harvested from an animal. Meat. We go over and over. We talk about meat. You can call your deal. That's why it doesn't affect vegetarian type stuff. You can call it whatever you want, but don't call it meat. Call it pink slime. Call it goo. And you can sell it. We're not stopping business. You just can't call it meat. The product we have is wholesome, and it's home raised. It comes from an animal, and we call it meat. This bill doesn't stop you from selling that new product you make. Find something new to call it. Don't call it my wholesome product and try to hang on to it. If you're using that for an excuse to vote against it, that it's anti-business or anti-freedom, it's not. You can cultivate something, don't call it meat.
Let's go to Senator Dockstader first and then to Senator Rothfuss.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A lot of scary things out there, restrictions, and we're gonna pull freedoms. That's what this bill's not. It's not about that. It's about that gooey stuff my colleague just talked about. This bill is about supporting Wyoming's ag community, and I stand with the ag community. I'm on and for the bill.
Okay, Senator Rothfuss.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This bill absolutely does not do what was just described. This bill clearly and unambiguously bans the sale of what is described or defined as cultivated meat, which again, it's not a labeling issue. This is not about labeling. It defines cultivated meat as meat that, and it actually defines it as meat, to be clear. It is calling it meat. Meat that is grown entirely in a laboratory from cultured animal cells rather than harvested from an animal. That is the definition of cultivated meat, and then it bans that. Manufacture for sale, sell, offer for sale, or distribute for sale cultivated meat for human consumption in this state. It defines a thing, and then it bans that thing. The sale of it, or for human consumption in any way. It is not about labeling. You can't simply change its name. That is an inaccurate representation of what this bill does. Yes, read the bill. Everybody take a minute to read the bill. It is unambiguous. It is a clear ban on this type of product. You cannot enter the marketplace with it. You cannot sell it. Doesn't matter what you call it. Doesn't matter what it is. If the desire is to have it about labeling, that's a different bill. That might be a good bill, right? Truth in labeling is probably going to be a very reasonable thing. Don't call it meat if we're going to define it not as meat, but you can still sell it. That's reasonable. Or saying this contains synthetic meat. That's reasonable. But to be very clear, that's not what this bill does. This bill absolutely bans the sale of it in Wyoming. That is anti-freedom. It's not a conspiracy theory. We're not seeing helicopters. It is clearly anti-competitive behavior.
Let's go to Senator Scott, and then if Senator Case still has something. Go ahead, Senator Scott.
Mr. Chairman, the previous senator is absolutely right about what the bill says. It prohibits the sale of meat grown from cultivated cells. No two ways about it, it does. And it should. And the reason is I think I wasn't explicit enough earlier. You have a significant additional public health risk with meat grown in animals. For most of the growing period, the animal's immune system prevents the kind of bacterial contamination that is dangerous. You can get contamination in the slaughtering and processing process, and we have a massive governmental, both state and federal, bureaucracy that works on protecting us and is pretty successful. But it's a massive bureaucracy that is well established and works on very well-known scientific principles. Here, you don't have the protections that are provided by the animal's immune system. It's a human-managed process the whole way, and to make it safe, we would need to have a lot more supervision of it, inspection of it, and under current conditions, it is flatly not safe to sell. And that's what the bill does. It prohibits the sale for very good public health reasons. Now, notice the reach of the bill. Mr. Chairman, it is restricted to the meat that's grown in culture. It doesn't prohibit the imitations that are made from vegetable material. Those don't have the same set of public health risks I think there are some because of the chemicals used, but they don't have it on the scale that this product would have. So on and for the bill, read it, it does as described, and it should do that.
Senator Case.
Hey, thanks, Mr. Chairman. I do weigh in on, this is a prohibition. You know, you can see from the engrossed bill that it absolutely is a prohibition. No person shall sell. It's a prohibition. So, and neither of the amendments address that. They just provide more modification. So, but I also rise, my good friend from rural Natrona County is questioning the safety and thinking that this still is a safety factor. And I'm having a hard time getting my head around that because I think of all the substances that are grown in laboratories that are things like insulin, flu vaccines, penicillin, you know, there is a host of medicines. There are other substances that are cultured substances. We've gotten through that. They're not a risk to the public per se. Of course, they have to be done correctly, Mr. Chairman, and monitored and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But this is a fencing bill. This is a prohibition. This is un-American. Wyoming's better than this, Mr. President. Let's just, Mr. Chairman, let's let them try to sell it in Wyoming. They won't get anywhere because we're not going to like it. But to say that you can't do it, that's wrong, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Any other discussion on House Bill 168? Senator Scott.
Mr. Chairman, yes, there are a lot of other things, and drugs in particular, that are grown in culture. And they are very carefully monitored for purity. You'll have recalls when something goes wrong. That is just absent in this. This really is a public health.
Senator Rothfuss.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't understand the assertion that it's absent, that this is somehow unsafe. Again, it comes down to your lab practices. The idea that you're just going to take whatever grows and then throw it into a package and send it to the grocery store is absurd. The idea that you can't control bacterial or fungal growth or sense it in a laboratory environment is also absurd. These are actually relatively simple and straightforward things to do that happen all the time. In microbiology and molecular biology laboratories, you have the possibility of contamination of your media. As you're growing a particular strain, when you get contamination, you know. It's straightforward. This has been standard practice in labs for decades, not recent growth or evolution of technology. It's simple and straightforward to detect contamination in a lab environment because you're growing a specific material that is intended. You take a simple test of the material, as you could do with, really anything, whether it's in agriculture or anywhere else, and then you check to see if you have any outliers, and that's typically going to be made up of stray genetic material. So the idea that somehow it is a insurmountable challenge to overcome the safety concerns of cultured meat is just a very unrealistic view of the industry. So you might not like this, Mr. Chairman, and that's okay. You don't have to like this, but the idea that this is going to be a dangerous industry when we've been engaged in biomedical and biotechnology for decades now with incredible levels of purity for the materials we produce and the capacity to handle those materials, it honestly just makes no sense. So I think it is one of those arguments that really comes from trying to generate fear, uncertainty, and doubt over an emerging technology and emerging industry with zero data. And I guess that would be the question. Where is some data on this? Rather than anecdote, rather than just asserting that this is a dangerous technology, point to some danger, some real danger, not just from advocates that are for the ag industry and against this technology. Point to some real data that shows that this is a significant public health risk anywhere. It's just not out there, because a lab can simply change their procedures and practices so that they can accommodate any potential risks and eliminate it, honestly, in a way that is equal to what the ag community does. They do the same type of testing, right? You test to ensure that you don't have infection. You test to ensure that you're not handing out eggs with salmonella or meat with salmonella, and if you do happen to have something pass through those tests, you do an immediate recall. This is standard practice. We see this all the time in traditional agricultural communities. There's no reason to believe that anything would be different here. It's just a manufactured fear, uncertainty, and doubt to oppose an emerging industry and defense out.
Senator Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I did a little research here and found out that we're not just talking about beef. We're talking about chicken and fish and all kinds of things that are going into this industry. Pretty significant here. In 2023, the companies attracted $2.5 billion in investment worldwide. So I think the bringer is right. This is coming on strong and going to be with us here soon. So thank you.
Thank you, Senator Anderson. Let's go to Senator McEwen and then back to Senator Scott.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As I ain't putting any of that in my grinder. They'll tear the blades apart. As y'all know, I sell soup for a living, amongst many other things. And as much as I'd love to tell you everything that comes in out of a controlled lab, I want to take you back in time a little bit and why we maybe should think about what we're doing here. Does anybody remember Diet Lean Burger and the pink slime scare? That pink slime had formaldehyde in it. And it was made in a manufacturing facility of the highest caliber until people started really getting sick, and then they banned it. So, little anecdote here. We loved it at Don's Supermarket because we ground our own Diet Lean Burger and we didn't have pink slime. So our hamburger sales went up when that was going on. I digress.
That's okay, Senator, go ahead.
This could be a dangerous road to go down, and I don't think it's just fencing out. And once again, I'm telling you, everything I sell on my shelves does not come from the best of labs. And that includes produce, meat, eggs, dairy products. So if you're gonna do this, you better make sure you got a whole set of rules and everything's promulgated. I love that word. I learned it here. Before you even start down the path. And I certainly wouldn't call it meat or incredible. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator McKeon, you do learn a lot here, I'll tell you that. So Senator Scott, did you have one last trip to the mic here?
No, Mr. Chairman, listen to the voice of experience.
Any other discussion? Let's go back to Senator Driscoll to take us home.
Mr. Chairman, not much, but it's kind of interesting to listen about the un-American talks. Other things we ban in the Wyoming legislature. We'll be having to talk about guns coming up in a few days. We talk about crossover voting and voting. We talk about abortion. So let's not talk about bans being un-American. We do it all the time. They're policy decisions. This is a state that a big part of it, I'm not declaring a conflict, by the way, but a big part of it's based on meat production. There's absolutely nothing wrong with supporting and taking care of your industries. And by the way, This isn't the first state in the nation to do it, folks. We're not out here plowing new ground. This has been passed other places. It's not the end of the world, but it's a good step. And if they get where it's safe and it's proven and it's there, I would suggest you'll see a bill that comes back that allows it to come, hopefully under a different name. But this is not out of bounds. It's not out of the way. It's been portrayed as something that's evil, anti-commerce, anti-American, anti-business. It's none of those things. Don't stand for the rhetoric.
Okay, House Bill 168. All those in favor of Senator French's motion that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report to do so with a due pass recommendation on House Bill 168, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no.
No.
House Bill 168 is passed Committee of the Whole. Next bill for our consideration is House Bill 39. If the reading clerk would please read the House bill.
House Bill 39, Property Tax Refund Program Revisions, an act relating to property tax sponsored by the Revenue Committee, was referred to Committee Number 3, which returned a committee recommendation that it do pass. Ayes Senators Case, French, Ide, McEwen, and Pappas. Senator McEwen, Chairman.
You've heard the reading of the bill. What's your pleasure, Senator McEwen?
I move that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report, it do so with the recommendation that Senate File 69, House Bill 39, do pass.
Which bill is it, Senator?
House Bill 39.
There we go. All right.
This is basically just a revisor or revision. As this bill went down stairs to a place of signatures, if you will, it had a level that went up to 165% of the poverty level. At the signature level, that got changed to 145%. So the only thing this bill does is make the green books match the current practice of the highest levels, 145%, not 165% of the poverty level. And with that, I'll stand for any questions.
Questions on House Bill 39? Any discussion? Senator Grew.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to make sure I understand from the bringer. So this bill got changed from 165 to 145 where? I'm just having a hard time understanding how that worked. Thank you. Okay.
Senator McEwen?
I think it starts out with line item, and the next word's a V, veto. That part of the bill got changed when it got signed. So rather than try to re-amend that back into the bill, we're just trying to get the bill at this point in time in the green books to match the current practice. Hopefully that helps you. Thank you.
Senator Rothfuss.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. I'm still not getting it, honestly. I don't know why this 165 that we see in the Green Book doesn't govern. That's what I'm missing. I mean, the appearance to me is changing 165 to 145 would decrease the eligibility for the program, and I don't know why that isn't the case due to a line item veto. I'm not tracking why this bill is not a substantive change. It seems to be a substantive change, and I'm not understanding why it's aligning with practice.
Thank you, Senator Rothfuss. There is one question on the floor. Any other discussion on House Bill 39, Property Tax Refund Program Revisions? Before we go back to the sponsor regarding the 165, 145, Senator McEwen, you want to give one more shot at that?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do. The bill came out of the Department of Revenue, and they asked us to put that 145
into statutes. It does say 165, but it was line item vetoed. And I need to look in the Green Book. It may not say 165 in the Green Book. But the practice isn't 165, it's 145. And it's gonna stay there. If you read the veto letter on it, I'm trying to get there with you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, let's go back to Senator Case and then to Senator Craigo.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My good chairman, I think is just right on. So the statute does say 165. They're administering it at 145. It's subject to available resources. It's subject to money that we appropriate for it. There's really, this did come from the Department of Revenue trying to true up what's actual practice with what, trying to fix the statute to match actual practice. So 145 is where it's at. It's where we administer it. 165 has implications, but it wouldn't cause more money to go out because it's subject to available funds. We'd have to appropriate more and raise the criteria. So kind of matching the rules of the department with the statute, and this time it's going a different way. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Craigo.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just trying to help, I think. So the only way to understand what's going on here is to go back and look at the bill we passed last year. And if you do that, you'll see exactly what we're trying to fix. There was a line item veto, and it struck the language. There was different levels within the bill we passed last year. Depending on what your income level was, you were able for a higher eligibility or a higher refund amount. The 165% language was line item vetoed, but in the lower part of the bill, but in the upper part of the bill, which is what we're fixing in this bill, it was not stricken. And so we're just trying to, as the good senator back in the corner, this is a conforming, really, it's what I would almost call a conforming amendment in a bill a year later so that the department knows what they should be doing. And I think it's up for discussion whether we want to go back at some point and look at a higher level, but for now, I think this is probably the right thing to be doing. Only way to understand is go look at the bill from last year. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Appreciate that, Senator. Thanks to both the previous speakers. Anything else then on House Bill 39? All those in favor of Senator McEwen's motion that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report it, do so with a do pass recommendation on House Bill 39, say aye. Any opposed, no. House Bill 39 is passed Committee of the Whole. Next bill for our consideration is House Bill 132. If the reading clerk would please read the House bill.
House Bill 132 engrossed annual permits for specified commercial loads, an act relating to motor vehicles sponsored by Representative Smith. Was referred to Committee Number 8, which returned a committee recommendation that it do pass. Ayes, Senators Anderson, Brennan, Cooper, Kolb, and Pappas. Senator Pappas, Chairman.
You've heard the reading of the bill. What's your pleasure, Senator Pappas?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. When the Committee of the Whole rises to report, I ask for a do pass recommendation on House Bill number HB 132. And for a explanation of this bill, I ask you to please turn it over to Senator Kolb.
Senator Kolb, you do have a Committee of the Whole amendment that we can get to at your pleasure.
Mr. Chairman, I'd ask you read the Committee of the Whole amendment in.
Okay.
House Bill 132, Committee of the Whole Amendment Number 1 to engrossed copy, page 1, line 10, delete.
Okay, Senator Kolb.
And I'd move the amendment to the bill.
Okay, thank you.
I'll just go through the amendment, kind of cleans it up and makes it easier to track. It basically talks about the 1-year permit that you could ask for if you so desired, and then had a fee associated with that. And it's a streamlining of the process for these depicted loads here, which is authorizing annual permits for hauling prefabricated buildings, panels, trusses, authorizing annual permits for hauling forest products, baled hay, combined headers, and specifying permit fees. The amendment just clarifies it and leaves the existing language alone, and then it goes on to say about the year annual permit. The language originally was a little bit confusing on page 2 up there on line 3. And folks, you could read that, and if that was kind of cleaned up a bit by the LSO, they explained that during the process on either side of the building, they had an amendment that was kind of rushed and it didn't come out the way they intended. So it's just a way of dealing with these type of loads in a longer term process so the folks don't have to go back and forth and apply for permits when they're going to be doing it for an extended period of time throughout the year. And that's really the intent of the bill, and that's what it cleans up. I'll stand for any questions, Mr. Chairman.
We're on the Committee of the Whole Amendment number 1 to House Bill 132. Any discussion? All those in favor of Senator Kolb's motion to adopt Committee of the Whole Amendment number 1 to House Bill 132, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. That Committee of the Whole Amendment is passed. We're back on the bill. Senator Kolb, anything else?
Well, Mr. Chairman, I think the bill's explanatory. It just goes off and sets up a set of parameters for these loads, everything but loads that require escorts, vehicles. They're excluded from this. It is kind of self-explanatory, and it just allows our people in the state of Wyoming that manufacture trusses and such to use this process so they don't have to go back and forth with permits, and it just streamlines business and for the permit applications for the listed products. And I'll stand for any questions, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you, Senator. Let's go back to Senator Driscoll.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Just a question on why trusts and whatnot out our neck of the woods, they haul kitty litter almost every day and have to get permits. Why didn't we broaden it up to other deals that are hauled fairly steady instead of individual? Thank you.
What about truckloads of cultivated meat?
Senator Kolb.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. To answer that question, we asked the same question. The bill text on the bill title is restricting us. We talked about what we're going to do in the future to kind of broaden this up for oil field type of hauling and those other types of activities. Great question. The bill title restricts us, and that's why it's limited. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, any further discussion on House Bill 132? Any further discussion? Senator Hicks.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, just a little discussion as to how the fee of $200 on the amendment, how do we come up with that number? Is that consistent with other permits through YDOT? Why $200?
Any other questions before we go back to the sponsors of the bill? Senator Driscoll.
Mr. Chairman, me again. Yeah, follow up on the last question is, what would it be on a per trip basis? It appears to me that the trucks are what really beat our highways up, and $200 for your permit that someone might be hauling loads every single day might be pretty light. I just wanted to idea what the comparison is compared to if they were doing a per trip deal, or if they're, because I see no restriction on loads. Some of these folks, I know in our country, trusses go by every day.
Okay, let's go to Senator Pappas.
So this just allows another option. I mean, the per trip permit fee is still in there, the $15 for each trip. But the fee for an extended period is now, so you could get it for 1 month, not to exceed 90 days for $50. So basically 90 days times 4, right, is a year. So the $200 it would be equivalent. It just streamlines it so that they don't have to keep applying for permits when these people have the same identical load every time. So we had testimony from some of these folks that were actually supplying product, the same product every day, day in, day out, and some days they'll one individual said they had loads of sheds. So some trucks, they could put 3 sheds on. So if they took a shed somewhere and dropped one off, then that load changed. And they have to file a new permit for it. And they go and drop the next load off, and that load changed, and they have, so just to drop 3 loads off, they had three permits. This allows 1 permit, and still collects roughly the same fee, but they don't have to do all the paperwork. Not only helps the folks in the trucking industry, but also our folks on the state side who have to process these permits. Thank you.
Okay, Senator Cole.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to try to answer a few of these questions. WYDOT didn't have an issue with the permit fees. They thought they were appropriate. I think to answer the question about the fee itself, it's probably as much to do about convenience as it about anything else. You don't have to go down and apply and go through the process. So I think convenience has a part to do with this. And then as for trusses being hauled, typically they're not very heavy, but they are wide and they are high. And there are restrictions in for purposes of that within the bill. So I can try to get some answers on some of the questions about why $200 was appropriate. I don't have a great answer, but I can get one. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Thank you. Anything further? Okay. All those in favor of Senator Pappas's motion that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report it, do so with a due pass recommendation on House Bill 132, please say aye. Any opposed, no. House Bill 132 has passed Committee of the Whole. Next bill for our consideration is House Bill 214. Senator Anderson.
Mr. Chairman, privilege of the floor.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Earlier, we saw the Republican women up in the balcony, and there was 3 Republican women that were missing. So from Natrona County Republican women, we have, if you'll stand up, please, Marcia Newmiller, who's the new president of the Natrona County Republican Women, Becky Bryan from the Executive Committee, and Kim Walker, the Vice President and State Committee woman for the county party. Let's give them a good hand. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Anderson. I thought they looked familiar up there. Listening in on this riveting debate. Welcome to the Senate today. Good to have you here. I think we were going to do a reading on House Bill 214, were we not?
House Bill 214, Local Government Payments, Electronic Payments, an act relating to cities, towns, and counties, sponsored by Representative Thayer, was referred to Committee Number 9, which returned to committee recommendation that it do pass. Ayes, Senators Anderson, Cooper, and Jones. Excuse, Senators Nethercott and Rothfuss. Senator Anderson, Chairman.
You've heard the reading of the bill. What is your pleasure?
I'll take it.
Senator Cates.
Mr. Chairman, I move that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report it, do so with a due pass recommendation. Are we on 214? I better shut up and sit down, but I'll go ahead and move that one and steal somebody's thunder. I was on the next bill, apologize. Oh, boy.
I wondered what we were up to. Senator Anderson, this was referred to your committee, and when that gentleman stood up behind you, I thought maybe you had passed the baton.
I thought he was pretty helpful. Yeah. What did he get done, Mr. Chairman?
Well, let's start all over with House Bill 214. If you could take the lead on that, Senator Anderson.
Mr. Chairman, I move that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report, that they do so with a positive vote on House Bill 214. And to explain this good little bill is Senator Crum. He wants to tell you all about it.
Senator Crum.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This bill is a really straightforward bill. What it's going to allow is our counties and our cities to pay their bills electronically. Right now, everything has to be written by check. We're like 30 years in the past here. They can't pay bills electronically. The record keeping is better actually because it's electronic and they'll be able to see exactly what they did. There won't be hand miss ledgers and things like that. So this bill is very straightforward, allows our cities and counties to pay their bills electronically, like I'm sure many of us do every day, pay our bills electronically. So I urge a yes vote on this. This bill makes sense. It'll save our counties money and time. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Crum. Any discussion on House Bill 214? All those in favor of Senator Anderson? Excuse me, Senator Hicks.
Wondered if we could get a little discussion as to why there wasn't a repealer on that provision of using the Pony Express to do the electronic transfers. And so maybe we can get an explanation on that.
Do we even have any horses left there, Senator Crum, to accomplish
The only
that?
explanation I'd have, we're in year 2025 and not 1825.
Okay, that helps. Thank you, Senator Crum. All those in favor of Senator Anderson's motion that when the committee of the whole rises to report it, do so with a due pass recommendation on House Bill 214, please say aye. Any opposed, no. House Bill 214 has passed committee of the whole. The next bill for our consideration is House Bill 40. If the reading clerk would please read that bill.
House Bill 40, Sales and Use Tax Revisions, an act relating to sales and use tax, sponsored by the Revenue Committee. It was referred to Committee Number 3, which returned a committee recommendation that it do pass. Ayes Senators Case, French, Ide, McEwen, and Pappas. Senator McEwen, Chairman.
Senator McEwen, you've heard the reading of the bill. What is your pleasure?
I move that when the committee of the whole rises to report it, do so with a recommendation that House Bill 40 do pass. And I will pass the baton to Senator Case, who can't wait to tell you about it, obviously.
Senator Case has been anxious all afternoon to get to this one, and so
Trying
here
to
you go.
bust down the barn door. I'm sorry,
Senator
Mr. Chairman.
Case.
And I apologize, my colleagues. The good chairman had just come over to warn me about this bill, and I just jumped up and jumped in the middle of that last mess. I'm sorry. So, Mr. Chairman, this is a bill that is trying to fix a little problem we have where our use tax statute is out of sync with our sales tax statute. And as you know, Mr. Chairman, they're supposed to be identical. And in Wyoming, you have a situation where if you buy something in the state, you're going to pay a sales tax. But if you purchase something from somewhere else and bring it in here, you're supposed to pay a use tax. And those and the use tax is $39.16, the sales tax is $39.15, and they should be identical. They really should be. But this is a case where we got a little out of whack. I think it might have been last year. And so this goes into the use tax statute, adds language that we put in the sales tax statute previously, but neglected to put them in both statutes. And so that's all this bill does. It's on page 2, you can look at, it adds what definition under vendor to the use tax that's not in the sales tax. It says, and this isn't a policy thing, we already did this, but it says, it adds a person is not in the business of selling tangible personal property that is subject to taxation under this article if selling tangible personal property is not a habitual or regular activity of the person. So that's kind of like your garage sale thing, Mr. Chairman. This says you don't owe a use tax on kind of the garage sale situation. There's a couple more amendments, Mr. Chairman, on the exemptions. You can see on page 3, on lines 23, remove the language if the sale or lease. There's other language there that gives its conformity, but what this does makes the use tax statute look like the sales tax statute. There's another one about, on page 4, it's under how vendors register, and it is the same conforming language. Got more on page 5, pick up some more. You get the idea, Mr. Chairman. So there is going to be a fix for this because there's going to be an interim study that's actually going to merge the two, propose to merge the two statutes so we don't have to do this anymore and we won't get in trouble. So help me with this bill, let's pass it forward, and then you can look forward to that interim study after next year, maybe, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Can't wait to see the results of
bet you
that
can,
study,
sir. I
Senator.
bet.
Senator, I'm excited about what might come out of that study. So any discussion on House Bill 40? Any discussion? All those in favor of Senator McEwen's motion that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report, it do so with a due pass recommendation on House Bill 40, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no? House Bill 40 has passed Committee of the Whole. Senator Nethercott.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that the Committee of the Whole rise and report.
Woo-hoo. You've heard the motion. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed, no? That motion has passed. Mr. President.
Nice work, baby. Man, I missed you. Didn't get a chance to watch the legend in action here. All right, Committee of the Whole report.
Mr. President, your Committee of the Whole, having had under considerations bills on general file, begs leave to report as follows. House Joint Resolution 1, do pass amended. House Bill 17, do pass. House Bill 168 engrossed, do pass amended. House Bill 39, do pass. House Bill 132 engrossed, do pass amended. House Bill 214, do pass. House Bill 40, do pass. Senator Landon, Chairman.
Senator Landon.
Mr. President, I would move the Committee of the Whole report.
You've all heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. The report has been adopted. Thank you, Senator Landon. Let's see here. Okay, we have a concurrence. All kinds of new stuff happening today. All right, Senator Guru, if you are ready on message number 268 or 298. Oh, there he is. There he is. Requesting concurrence on Senate File 42 Resort Hotel liquor licenses. I will have that written if you're ready.
From the House of Representatives,
One at a time.
February 18, 2025, message number 298, concurrence requested. Mr. President, Senate File 42, Resort Hotel Liquor Licenses, passed on third reading in an amended form. Ayes 43, noes 18, excused 1, and the House respectfully asks the Senate to concur by adopting amendments.
All right, Senator Guru.
Yes, Mr. President, I would move concurrence on message number 298 and urge you to vote aye. Good members of the 68th, this was Senate File 42, a liquor license bill that passed through here and went down to the end of the hall. If you recall, the only little hiccup we had on this bill was regarding the definition of a restaurant. And we had had an amendment that actually I brought at the behest of some of our friends that I was trying to get their support for, and it was a very, let's just say, laborious and overwritten piece of amendment that described a restaurant. Our friends down the hall came up with a much more artful and a much more concise definition, and I can read it to you real quick. It just says, it includes a full-service restaurant shall be open during regular business hours at the discretion of the appropriate licensing authority. Variances to this time requirement may be granted on a seasonal basis. As used in this paragraph, a full-service restaurant means a restaurant where waiters deliver food and drink offered from a printed food menu to patrons at a table or booths that has a dining rooms, kitchen, and the number and kind of employees necessary for preparing, cooking, and serving of meals. This is, well, not cultured, I'll tell you that right now. That's all I know about that. Good old Wyoming beef, of course,
would probably be the only thing served. But anyway, it was just a much better, and like I say, a much simpler definition of a restaurant. And so that's the only change in the bill, and I recommend that you do concur.
Okay, thank you, sir. The motion is that the Senate do concur on Senate File 42 and vote aye. Chief Clerk, please call the roll.
Concurrence vote, Senate File 42. Roll call. Anderson? Aye. Barlow? Aye. Boner? Brennan? Aye. Case conflict? Cooper? Aye. Craigo? Aye. Crum? Aye. Dockstetter? Aye. Driscoll? Conflict? Driscoll, aye. French? Aye. Guru? Aye. Hicks? No. Hutchings? No. Ide? No. Jones? Aye. Kolb? Aye. Landon? Aye. Larson? No. McEwen? Conflict? Conflict? Nethercott? Aye. Olson? Aye. Pappas? Aye. Pearson? No. Rothfuss? Aye. Salazar? Aye. Schuler? Aye. Scott? Aye. Smith? Aye. Steinmetz? No. Boner?
Where's Boner? Excused.
Excused. And President Beitman?
No.
No. Closing vote. Closing vote. Closed. Senate File 42. 20 aye, 8 no, 1 excused, 2 conflict.
By your vote, you have concurred on Senate File 42. Senator Driscoll.
Quick explanation. I went from a conflict to an aye. I saw where there was no impact on what I do. I have a liquor license, but I don't see any way that it has an effect on me. I had some questions on why I changed from a conflict to an aye. I see nothing that affects my business in any way going forward.
Thank you, Senator Driscoll. Ellen, do we have anything else? That's it? All right, Madam Majority Floor Leader, that clears the desk.
Mr. President, I move that we stand adjourned until 10 a.m. Wednesday, February 19th, 2025.
Adjourned till 10 a.m. Any announcements? Senator Barlow.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, your committee number 10, Labor, Health, Social Services, will meet tomorrow, February 19th, noon recess. W110 to hear one bill, House Bill 121 engrossed, hospital pricing transparency. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chairman Anderson.
Mr. President, your favorite committee, Minerals, Business and Economic Development, will meet tomorrow at noon in the Capital Extension Room W4 to hear 3 bills. House Bill 183 engrossed net metering amendments. That's a continuation from the 14th Valentine's Day. House Bill 181 engrossed funeral contracts, investment and bonding requirements, and House Bill 202 Fast Track Permits Act. Thank you.
Thank you. Chairman Case.
Well, thank you, Mr. President. With respect to the Corporations Committee, there's a very exciting event tonight. The National Council of Insurance Legislators are here in town, and so we're going to meet with them. The committee is encouraged to go. They're at a watering hole downtown, but there's more than water. And also others are certainly welcome to come if you want to talk about insurance legislation. We'd love to have you.
Sounds pretty dry to me. Senator Olson.
Your committee number 1, Judiciary, will meet tomorrow upon the noon recess in W002 to consider 2 House bills, House Bill 289, Certificate of Need Repeal 3, and House Bill 111, hit and run responsibility and penalties.
Thank you, Chairman. Chairwoman Schuler.
Thank you, Mr. President. We, the Senate Committee, we're going to add one more bill for tomorrow, February 19th, in W10 at 8 o'clock. We're going to hear House Bill 235 engrossed, Career Technical Education Equipment and Supplies, House Bill 18, Career Technical Education Funding, and House Bill 46, Homeschool Freedom Act, if we have time.
All right, thank you. All right, Chairman McEwen.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your committee number 3, Revenue, will meet upon noon recess tomorrow in room number 6 to take up House Bill 311, exemption for transported fuel and power sales amendments. House Joint Resolution number 4 engrossed, constitutional amendment, veterans property tax exemptions, and House Bill 134 engrossed, taxpayer funds, sexually explicit events prohibited. Thank you, Mr. President.
You're all right. Thank you. Any other announcements? All right, you've all heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. Senate will stand adjourned until 10 a.m. tomorrow morning.